Now we are recording. And welcome to the Diablo podcast. I'm your host, Xanth, and I am joined today by Neinball
Oh, hi.
and noted streamer, noted whale, noted crow eater, and notably absent Nerdwords, who is not
Sorry.
here.
That's good.
So it is just the two of us tonight, and we are, of course, brought to you by PureDiablo.com, your home for Diablo news, an ever-growing Diablo community, and an expansive wiki, and of course, this podcast. Uh, Well, we got
Yes, sir.
a few things to dig into. First and foremost, we did do a podcast on Tuesday. My microphone was turned off. So we're kind of going to rehash some of the best bits. And honestly, much like Hemingway's lost novel, This is the Sun Also Rises that you are getting. That's a deep lit joke for anybody out there who's like, oh, yeah, I knew about that. So let's hit the news before we get into the focus of today's podcast, which is our yucks and our yums of the Diablo 3 or Diablo 4 beta. The Diablo 3 beta had
The
a
Diablo
lot
3
more.
beta, yeah. My
Wow.
first yuck is that it stopped at Leoric.
And then it kept going for a year. Okay. So news-wise, uh, we did get another promo. So Diablo has partnered with Thumbtack and has a $26,000 promotion for 130 different winners to get $200 to help you clean your house so you can just play Diablo. Did you sign up for that? Are you hoping somebody's going to come and dust your collection back there?
I did not. I don't think like besides like the all the crap that you see behind me in this room, there's not much else in the apartment in order to go through and clean. I think we're good. We're good. Though I did get my weird ass commercial out of it.
That you did with a man, much
Yeah.
like we are, going around and cleaning. That is, it's unnerving, but also very, very fun. Um, I didn't see anywhere in the promotion that if you win, you get a robe, and honestly, I'm a little disappointed that that isn't a part of
Yeah.
it.
I think what would be cool is if they actually like, if part of like the partnership that they had like specific teams that would go out and do it instead of like the local groups through the thumbtack. They actually sent people dressed in these robes doing, your chores for the weekend.
I will say, and for those of you who are just listening, you don't get the full visual, but there is a part of the robe that both of us have taken off that is like a black screen that'll actually cover your face, so you don't really get to see us. It doesn't work well in this visual medium, so we don't wear them, but it does look pretty cool. Um, I would be a little more unnerved by somebody roaming around with that part in my home, a stranger and all. But then again, if they're cool with it, it could be fun. My wife wouldn't like it. My wife doesn't like me wearing a robe, yet alone a stranger in the house. So
No,
she'd
it's
have
okay,
questions.
dear. I'm not in a cult.
She would appreciate somebody cleaning the house, though. So kind of give and take. Give and take on that one. Okay, so we're not going to have some stranger come and clean our house. Uh, in tandem with the promotion, they did also announce over 1 million people, 1 million, uh, were able to get to level 20 in the beta and earn their Wolf Pup, which also runs into this coming weekend, or if you're listening, probably by the time this is live, the current weekend. So you still have time to get that if you didn't. But 1 million people, does that surprise you at all?
No, not at all. And that's not even how many people just played. That's just the number of people that got to 20. Because like I have a coworker and his girlfriend that downloaded it on a whim to go through and play because they knew because it's like everybody's talking about it. And they're not like really big Diablo players or anything, but it's like I'll it's like they bought their KFC sandwich, they got the code, they went through, they downloaded it on the PlayStation, they started playing, and then they like went out of town for the rest of the weekend. But they had fun. They'll finish up this weekend and get the level 20 bonus
Yeah,
for them.
I know some other people similar boat that didn't reach 20. It will be interesting to see if they release those numbers at the end of the following weekend when it's been completely open. Um,
Hmm.
I would kind of hope that they do. I would love to see just how many people were engaged. Also gives you kind of a feel for what release will be like how many people are going to come in. As it was going live, I was watching you streaming. I was taking a look at Twitch numbers because I was waiting in a queue like most people. And it was really cool to just see the amount of interest that Diablo is generating. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen this weekend. Obviously, the queue is going to be a little bit longer, I would assume,
Hmm.
but we'll see how well they ironed it out and what they learned from weekend one. Uh, Now, speaking of that weekend, there was a noticeable amount of legendaries that we were getting, and Rod Ferguson did confirm today, as we're talking news, that the legendary drop rate is a bit overtuned specifically for the beta, and that it is not an actual expectation that we should have for live. Um,
Hmm.
does that surprise you? I mean, because you played the original press beta, was the drop rate similar to what we're seeing right
I
now?
actually So I actually didn't get I didn't play the press beta as much as I played this weekend. In order to get a feel for like the legendaries. And I know some people were going through and talking about they had legendaries raining from the sky. I think when I beat the campaign at like level 19, 18, 19, I had like a grand total of I think maybe like four legendaries that had dropped. And one of them was a weapon that had dropped at like level 10 and I had long since had not used. So I didn't have a lot of luck finding legendaries. It didn't feel that bad, or like it wasn't like exploding in my face. But the one thing that did stand out to me was the gambling. It was easily like 1 in 4 pieces that I gambled for. I went in with like the 500 obolts and walked away with almost like a fully legendary out character.
I did not experience as much legendary drops. Even my gambling wasn't great, but I did have I it did still feel like I had, more slots. And with the aspect system, it felt like I had more legendaries than I probably would in general. So I think it's fine for a beta. I'm happy that it's a little overtuned. It gives us probably more to play with. I'd imagine, as we've seen with these legendaries, they do expand on some builds. They allow you a little bit more versatility, a little bit more creativity. I think that's what they want people to play with. But if the regular system, like I was perfectly fine just kind of living off of my skill selection more than my legendaries. And if that's the
Yeah.
actual release experience, I'm fine with that. Like I like that was kind of my big complaint about Diablo 3 was like no build felt good until you had your set that made it work. Whereas if
Mhm.
my build feels good sans the item and feels better with it, I'm okay with that, right? Like it's not, I need it for function, but it just makes the functionality a little better.
Mhm.
And I think that's all it.
There.
Oh,
Yeah, I was just about to say that there was another tweet actually just a couple of hours ago from Daniel Briggs,
oh,
who
yes, yes,
is
yes.
the
The
one of yeah who's one of the associate art designers on the game. I was going through because someone you're about to go through and say I already know what one of your uglies are, one of your yucks, before we go into it. But as people, there were some people that are going through and complaining. It's like, oh, Inferno didn't look as good uh, in the beta as it did like in like the closed beta or earlier versions of the game. And so Daniel Briggs, who is one of the art designers, kind of went through and chimed in. It's like, hey, the visual effect actually scales with the like how many skill points you have. So like the better your skill, they visually represent that in addition to like legendary properties and stuff like that that will change out the skill effects. And it scales up with because you can spend. We've kind of like have some harder numbers here because there's a 5 skill points that you can put into the skill, but then you can get +6 from skill point affixes. You can get +3 from skill point categories, and then you can also get another +4 from extremely rare redacted source. So it looks like you can actually like get up to like even though the most that you can spend in the skill points is 5, you can get up to 18 ranks in a skill if you like really want to hammer that one in. So it is like one of those ones. The whole point of this tangent, going back to the original point, was that the in the early game having those decisions be driven by your skill points as opposed to your items, it will slowly like kind of like shift as we get further into the game on live.
Yeah, I had seen that tweet as well because that did come up as a point of conversation. Like, hey, you guys showed us that this was going to happen. We're not seeing it happen, and it's kind of nice to be like, yeah, you're not seeing it happen because you only got a quarter of the character. There's a lot more opportunities for that growth. Just wait. Um, but I definitely do get that kind of speculation of like, oh no, I could throw all my points in. It doesn't really look that different. Why is that? So it was nice to have that little bit of clarity there. Um, but that's a nice transition. So we talked a little bit just briefly at the top end. The focus is the yucks and the yums. Um, I'm not going to yuck your yum, and I'm gonna assume that you won't mind Nineball unless it's my class decision. Yeah, that's what I thought. See, he's not going to say anything now because he'll look like a jerk. So we got this little peek into what Diablo 4 is. We got 25 levels to do it, and I want to stress because it's kind of weird. We're re-recording this. How exciting it was to play this game, and how excited I am for tomorrow to play this game. And we talk about the first yuck, right? Is the fact that this weekend's going to go by very quickly, and then I have to wait 2 more months. That's a
Yep.
yuck. That's a big yuck. Um, I I wasn't expecting like I was expecting to like it, right? We're here, we're talking about Diablo. We've been talking about Diablo for 7 months on this podcast and for years and years and years, but I wasn't expecting it to kind of fundamentally change how I was viewing everything else because nothing else seems to fit the or to scratch that itch, I guess.
Hmm.
Like it just, I want to be playing more. Even when I reached 25 on my rogue, I went back and kept playing at 25. There wasn't anything else left to do, but I wanted to mess around with skills. I wanted to see what I could make work. And like, how much more fun is that going to be when I've got way more options? So the yuck, that's a little bit of a yum too, but the yuck, the first yuck for me is the fact that I have to wait even longer once this weekend is over. You got a yuck there, Nine Ball?
Yeah. What was it? I think one of the more common ones I did have uh or I guess not so much common, actually not common at all. It's common like in my circle and some of the people that I've talked to, is there's no lore journal. All of like the various like pickups or like little like lore things that you go and you come across in the game. Uh that's it. You hopefully you were paying attention, or that you didn't miss that clickable or that interactable or whatever it was while you had access to it at the time. Um, because that's all. There's no way to go back because like in D3 you had the journal, so all of like the
Mhm.
little journal entries and other things like that you could always go back, click on and get and re-listen to some of those pieces of dialogue. It doesn't exist in D4 at the moment. No, there's just no way of going back and re-listening to them, revisiting them, or anything like that. So that was unfortunate. That's one of the ones that I do hope as like a minor quality of life thing that they go and add back in.
I'm sure we'll hit it on some of the yums, but like the storytelling overall has been very engrossing and very engaging.
Hmm.
So I guess I didn't even consider that, but I know there are large parts of lore that I probably missed that it would be nice to kind of go back and revisit, catalog and see. So yeah, I do agree on that. That would be kind of nice. Just to kind of have that catalog of, as a parent too, I'll be playing, something might be happening. I might miss
Hmm.
something. It would be like, oh wait, what? Who did what? Well, I don't want to go back, but now I have to
Yep.
because it's gone. So yeah, that would be super beneficial. Now, I do think there is one yuck that we can both agree on, and that was the servers on day one.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I do expect tomorrow, because we are recording this on Thursday, tomorrow I think will be a little bit like that. I don't know um, how many people are going to be coming. I don't know if they know.
There's going to be a
I
lot.
Right. I would expect it's much like what we had seen, and that's a good thing. I think
Mm,
it's not something that this isn't just our weekend to play Diablo 4, right? There's a purpose to it, and that's the purpose. And I made a mention of it earlier today. If I have to wait in a queue for a while so that they can figure this out so I don't have to do that come June 2nd,
hmm
that's good by me. Because
Yep.
playing Druid for a weekend is awesome, but I really want to play my Druid June 2nd, right when it starts, because that's the one I get to play for a long time.
hmm
And if they get to sort it out, that'll be good. So the servers, day one, did kind of suck to kind of go, but I was impressed at the speed at which they were able to sort it out. Because by the when I logged in on Saturday, it was like 5 minute, 1 minute queues already.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Going through and playing on Saturday later in the evening at around like 6 or 7 o'clock. There was no queue. You just
Yeah.
logged in. And so I do expect that for all of the improvements that they made for like the server stability and the login issues are going to be overcome by the increase in volume of people that are going to be attempting to log in tomorrow. So I don't expect. I should not that I don't expect. I would not be surprised for hour plus queues again tomorrow. Because I'm not going to be able to be like sitting at my computer right as the servers go live. I'm going to be a little bit delayed, so I'll be playing later on in the evening on Friday. Right in the thick of things when everybody else in the world, or at least everybody else on the East Coast, is getting off of work, rushing home, and trying to play Diablo. Um, so we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to playing the line game again.
Yeah, I do. I'm in kind of a similar boat. I was very lucky last week. I had the day off on Friday. So I was fine to just wait to be able to get in. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go to work and then I'm gonna come home from work and deal with life and then eventually get to play and yeah, I'll be right in the traffic jam as well. But hopefully those, 6+ hours prior was enough for them to iron it out and we'll be in and good to go. But uh who knows? Who knows? Other yucks that you have from our D4 experience.
I guess I was expecting a little bit more from like the map UI. Just it's a step up, from previous like Diablo games, with the exception of not being able to have like a map overlay while you're playing. And also I've gotten accustomed to like Diablo Immortal, where you just click the map in order to open it. And that doesn't work. Yeah, you do have to hit, like the tab key in order to go through and bring up the map. And then like navigating through it to say like get to the renowned section of the map, which is like what I would use it for a lot. You would, it takes a couple clicks to get to, as opposed to just having like a keyboard shortcut to get straight to the renown. Um, if they had made it to where, because first you have to open up the map, then you have to hit W, in order to get to the renowned section. Just let me hit W,
And
or have
if
it
I
have it key
if I recall
bindable. Period.
correctly too,
Yeah,
even if you hit W, but you were hovering over the top of the map,
yeah,
it wouldn't open it. And that
yeah.
I think I waited a long time to even be able to get that first skill point that you get off of Renown because I'm just like it's just not all right. I'm just gonna keep playing. It'll come up
Mm-hmm.
again.
It'll come up eventually. You're like thinking it's like, oh, it's just the servers, it's bugged or something like that. And then
Right,
you realize my mouse is just sitting over a little quest hub.
right.
Like the blue area on the section that I have a side quest in, and because it's a interactable on the map, the renown window doesn't pop up. Um,
Yeah,
so it definitely.
it that could be fixed. And the overlay map, kind of a staple of Diablo. It was very weird to not have that. Um, I will say, and then maybe this is a little unpopular, I'm not a huge fan of the overlay map though, like hanging out on top of my character. I get its necessity, but I feel like then it's always on the screen. Like I'm always gonna have it. And then like that kind of takes away. I I don't know how you solve that. Like I don't know what the
Yeah.
solution is there, but it
I mean,
at least
one of sorry, it's just like one of like the conversations I saw. I think it was on Reddit. Was going through and talking about just allow us to resize the mini map in the UI. You know,
that could be fine too. Yeah.
yeah,
I just hate always having the map outline in front of my character because I'm paying more attention to that than the actual character then.
character. Yeah.
I put all that time in character creation. That'll be a different yum later because it's so fun. But I want to see that. I don't want to just be staring at the map. And in playing Switch while running, I never get to use the overlay. Like I have it just in the right corner because my screen's already so small I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm getting used to not using it. Uh, any other yucks that come to mind?
I think the only other yuck is the dungeons. Some of the dungeons, particularly the ones where it's like you literally have to kill every single enemy before you can go through and progress on. When I'm trying to remember, I think it was the defiled ossuary or something like that. It's just south of like, or it's just east and south of Nevesk, the starter zone. Um, because it is kind of linear. So it's a straight line that you have to walk through in order to get to, but then it has like a couple of branches that go off. And so if you're like walking down the wrong path, you kind of realize, oh wait, I went down the right path to get to the end of the dungeon. So I kind of like have to go back, into the other branch characters or the other branch areas in order to like finish like the one little objective or something like that. It can be annoying.
And
Just even something as simple as dropping it from like killing 100% of the enemies to killing 80% of the enemies.
which
Though I think actually the ossified wasn't even killing enemies. That one was like killing the skeletal constructs. But you had to if you missed it, you're backtracking a lot.
I
There's just a lot of dungeon design that causes a lot of backtracking. Um, Whether it's like picking up interactables one at a time and taking it back to a certain area and such. It felt feels like just like a little bit too slow, a little bit too much backtracking. And after, especially like with the interactables, you've cleared like that whole wing of the dungeon. You pick up the orb or the key or the altar or the stone or whatever it is, then you have to bring it all the way back, to like the boss entrance. And you're just walking. You've killed all the enemies on your way over there. There's nothing left to do. So you're just spending however much time that it takes you to walk back, uh, walking back, and that's it.
Yeah, I had brought that up as well. Like with the anytime you had to get two of something and put them on pedestals, you can only pick up one. So you do that, you make that slow walk, you put it on the pedestal, and then you go to the other wing and you have to make that slow walk and put it back. I'd be totally fine if I could just pick up both at the same time,
Yeah.
do all the clearing, and then I only have to make one long walk back. Like, and that to me makes sense. I probably could be able to carry two of these things and
Hmm.
then maybe move on. I
I
will say
mean, we
with the
are carrying the weight of Sanctuary on our
yeah,
backs.
we are
Yeah.
pretty strong, I think. Um, I think the kill all monsters one, I do appreciate. At least you can see them on the map. They give you the red
Hmm.
dots, as opposed to being full on Den of Evil, where you have no idea where that last fallen happens to be. But
Yeah.
I think 80% seems a little bit more doable. And then, hey, the other 20% can follow you while you're carrying those boxes.
Yeah. Just adding something to it. Even if it's I'm trying to remember like the WoW mythic dungeons that there were like some encounters that you would it was like the final season of Battle for Azeroth that there were you it added like little mini bosses as you were going through and you were clearing like the mythic dungeon. And there were strategies that were involved about skipping some of the mini bosses because if you didn't kill it when you engaged the final boss of the dungeon, they would all aggro and appear. And so
Huh.
there were actually strategies for going through and engaging those mini bosses with the main boss. Depending upon your group composition and such, that created different takes or different strategies. What if you could go through and clear that section without having all without killing all 100% of the monsters, but anything that you left over then ran into the boss encounter.
Uh,
Something just
I
like
would die.
something other
I
things
would
like
die
that.
very
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, but just other things that gave you some strategies because right now I think it's just like the dungeon progression is just a little bit too linear. Do objective 1, do objective 2, kill the boss, dungeon over. If there
Yeah.
was something that, there's nothing really that you can do to change it up, because there's really no strategy to it. It's just kill faster.
Hmm.
And so I guess that's one of the things, I was hoping that the dungeons might be a little bit obviously we don't have the nightmare dungeons yet. The nightmare dungeon, the nightmare sigils and things like that could change things. But just from the dungeons that we see now, I think I was expecting maybe just something a little bit more um
I
in
think,
terms of what.
yeah, I think that's a fair point. I will state though that like we can find these things with dungeons right now and point them out. They do have a pretty good base to them though, that I feel like we have at least something to build off of. Like you said, we go step one, step two, step three. Well, how do we make step one more enjoyable? How do we make step two more enjoyable? And then how do we,
Mhm.
get to step three? The bones are there, right? The bones are
Yeah.
all there.
Oh, for sure.
It's
Yeah.
just figuring out different ways to do that. So I'm still relatively optimistic about how it's going to go because if we look at like Diablo 3 as an example, there were so many things that just weren't there. So many things to do that just didn't exist. So outside of just run Fields of Misery again,
Yeah.
you would never even touch a boss because why would you after the first time?
Hmm.
Let's just, grind Fields of Misery until we reach new gear. I mean, I'm back to just our initial release where we didn't even have the Paragon. This feels like a system that has a lot of potential. And then with
Oh, for sure.
iteration, we'll just get better. So I think that that at least is a silver lining to it. And I will say they're still enjoyable as is, but there's always room for growth. Any other yucks coming to mind before we hit the waypoint?
No, I think that's all I got.
All right, well, let's head on back to town and hit the waypoint. So with this week and with all of our waypoints, try to focus on other people out in our community and other Diablo communities that are doing some good things, or any potential sponsors. We could talk about you. We could talk about you. I
So,
mean, KFC, go back, watch the last episode. We did you at least $3 worth of advertising. But in this waypoint, I'd like to focus on the folks over at Shattered Soulstone podcast, another Diablo podcast, and actually the longest running continuous Diablo podcast in the community. And they also had the common sense to bring in Nineball a couple of times. So if you're
or
like,
or the or the or the bad sense, one or the other.
yeah. So if you're looking for more Diablo content and you haven't already found them, you definitely should. Over 400 episodes talking
Mhm.
Diablo, talking Activision, uh, and also talking about other people out in the community. They've been gracious enough to talk about us a couple of times, and I sincerely appreciate not only the podcast but those kind of efforts. So go check them out. Nimble, thoughts on Shared Soulstone?
Oh yeah, Jen's doing a great job over there. They really have been holding that banner for a very long time. Jin is like one of the original like co-hosts on the show as well. Been doing it for literally over 10 years. So it's definitely big props to them for everything that they've been doing over there.
Yeah, and I'm impressed at the continuous nature of it all the time. So go and check them out. All right, I filled up on potions, grabbed a few scrolls, identified an item or two. I was gonna do a Deckard Cain impression there. Do you have a Deckard Cain impression? I mean, I feel like 20 some episodes in here, nobody's done a Deckard Cain impression.
I can't do one. I can only do one impression, and that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's pretty much it.
Well, I feel like you can't say that and not do it.
Do it now. Get down.
Oh, yeah, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right,
Get to the
should
waypoint.
I oh, Rush capture that, and then when we always go into a waypoint, please have that. Okay, so Deckard Cain. Wow, yeah, listen. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the best I
yeah,
got.
yeah.
Okay,
I mean, you got the
uh,
look. You got the look down.
it's true. I've
Yeah, bald
aged
and a beard.
into
Yeah,
Deckard
just
Cain at
needs
this point.
just needs some more gray.
Give it time. Give it time. Okay, so we've cleared the waypoint. Moving back to the conversation, and this is um, well, it's not to say the first part wasn't fun. We're dwelling on the yucks, but let's dig into the yum. After 4+ years, we got to it. So my first is level scaling. I play hardcore, and at first I was really hesitant because part of hardcore for me is having a safety net of like, okay, I'm gonna
Hmm.
grind a few early areas, I'm gonna get some levels, and then I'll be able to tackle it. It's a lot easier to take on, Act 2 Duriel when you're a little bit over leveled. It's a lot easier to take on Andariel when you're over leveled. That safety net has been removed, and gear can help. But
Hmm.
I had the most fun and stressful boss fights of my entire Diablo experience. Now, I just took out Diablo while doing the treadmill necromancer, and that was pretty tense. But I kind of figured I knew I was going to be okay. The fights with my rogue that I was entering into, having no idea about, and then knowing like I'm stuck in here. Either I'm gonna
Hmm.
die or they are, and nothing else I can do is gonna better it. I can't over level them, right?
Yep.
I could just hope that I figure it out and I'm able to kind of put it together. And there were some close calls, some very close calls. And I've kind of been turned around on level scaling. It's gonna be kind of cool to be able to go anywhere in Sanctuary and be leveling up. If I really love the Fractured Peaks, I can stay there and try to explore every nook and cranny and not feel penalized for that. Or I could be
Hmm.
going um, over to Scotland, which I'm going to have to, because we know that's where the Druid class mechanic is. But I could spend my time in
Yep.
Scotland, empower my character up, and then, kind of go and explore the world and not be penalized for that, as opposed to like having preferable zones. Now, there are some leveled areas where you have to be a certain level to go into. Well, not go into, but like, you're going to have a harder time. So that I'm okay with. But the level
Hmm.
scaling in general really kind of won me over. Like I was walking in going, I don't know about this, and I thought it was well done.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed the system. I've never had problems with level scaling or anything like that. WoW has done it for a good number of years to good effect. Where I believe it was one of the criticisms I had seen. Kriparian had put out a video, and he was very negative on level scaling. Because kind of like going from the standpoint that every time that you level up, you're effectively getting weaker because the only thing that you get from your level is a skill point, and the monsters will scale faster than the amount of increased damage that you get from your skill point. But that doesn't. But it kind of. I think that he kind of missed the point of the items, as you mentioned, are making up that difference, and so it's not just the fact that you're leveling, you're getting access to new items, you're getting access to more affixes, stronger affixes. Because you didn't get plus upheaval until later on. You didn't get pluses to certain skills until you kind of like had them unlocked. And so you were getting your items were giving you a pretty fair amount of power. Um, that was scaling up higher with the higher your level and such, the damage of your weapons and everything else. And so
Right. I
I
mean,
do like it because it creates a challenge. It does create a challenge where you're always having to balance and take a second and look at your gear and such.
yeah, and I think there's also another nice part. So a friend of mine is not going to be able to play on Friday, right? He's going to get in on Saturday. I'm going to play a lot on Friday if I can, and then I'll probably be on Saturday as well. I'm more than likely going to be significantly higher level than him. And in most instances, that would mean I either start a new character with him or I try to power level him, which, doesn't really seem like we don't know how that works just yet. Or I
Yeah.
just wait for him to catch up. But with this level scaling, that's not going to be a thing. I can walk in with my level 15 druid. He can be his level one, what he'll choose. He'll probably take a barbarian. Um, and we can just play. And it's going to be scaled appropriately to both of our levels. There's going to be no detriments. I think that's going to be fun. Like I'm totally fine with that. Like I'm gonna die a lot in hardcore, as I've already kind of found out. I did not die this weekend somehow, but I do think. I mean, at first I avoided world bosses. I just wasn't on during those times. They
Mhm.
will kill me from everything that I've seen, so I'm gonna die a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to be unable to still play with people that are on my list. Leviathan's on both of our friends' lists. He's going to be crushing things left and right. And most of the time, I can't play with him because I feel like I'm just going
Mhm.
to slow him down. I could still play with him. Probably, if he's
Mhm.
doing Nightmare Dungeon, wouldn't be able to. But I could jump in during while he's in, the Fractured Peaks. We could hang out. We could kill some Nazara and just have a good time. And
Yeah.
that's exciting. That's more connectivity, which I'm all for. So long and short of it, level scaling is a good thing. Why don't you give me a yum there, Nine Ball?
We kind of alluded to it already earlier, but the storytelling, the dialogue and the story and everything has been absolutely top notch. I'm glad that people are finally able to go through and experience, what I got to experience in the press beta, go through and see, the beauty that is Anarius's wings, because I will die on the hill that the angel's wings are the absolute best thing that has ever come out of Diablo, regardless of anything else. Um, but it's just you get this really good feel for the world. Like the dialogue is all like really well done. Everything feels a little bit more like grounded and weightier. With like your decisions, it almost feels there's kind of like a time clock ticking. As you go along the story. We won't talk about any actual story spoilers or anything like that. But it feels good. Like it's a nice dark story. You're having to make like you're having to choose between bad decisions and such. So I do enjoy the direction that they're going with the narrative design for the game.
Yeah, w- we'll talk story. I think we'll talk story, not next episode, but maybe another episode once it's been like a little bit more digested. Because I think we
Hmm.
can dig into it at that point. Some people are going to go in and just get to experience it this weekend. But I will state the dichotomy between Lilith and Anarias is so well done. Like
Yeah,
they're both not good, right?
yeah.
They both have their atrocities, if you will,
Hmm.
and it's kind of just this moral choice of where you're kind of falling, as opposed to a clear good versus evil. I think that's just more refreshing to the Diablo story, um,
Yeah.
of understanding of like, okay, I can get why people would go with Lilith, or I can get why people would follow Anarius, but neither one of them's right. It's that in between choice. I was
It's
curious how that was going to play.
Yeah, it's even like it's taken to like the extreme. Like in the game itself, there are like kind of like Lilith's depiction of what happened at the beginning of the creation of Sanctuary, and Anarius's depiction of what happened at the beginning of the creation of Sanctuary are like polar opposites of one another. They both put themselves in the spotlight. And also neither of them mention any of the other angels or demons that were involved in the creation of Sanctuary or anything like that. They are both very much the main characters of their own stories.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah,
those, again, we're not getting too spoiler specific, but as you go to talk to an Arias, you see those murals. And the one I really liked was him riding the World Stone. Like
yeah.
that, that takes an ego to like
Hmm.
have you like just dominating and riding it as if it's like some sort of missile out of Doctor Strangelove. Um,
Well, he's
but
actually like in that mural. He's like standing on top of it. And it's specifically like the mural is called Creative Sanctuary, and he's standing on top of the World Stone wielding a hammer.
yep.
It's like literally like he's going through and creating Sanctuary with it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I gotta say, I'm so impressed, and I'm very excited for eventually we are going to bring back Brian and Deandra to talk story once the game has been released. So it'll be
Hmm.
really cool to get a little bit of the perspective of how this all came to be. What were those conversations like? How did they get this story to be framed? And I think hopefully we'll have had some time to actually fully to digest the whole story. So we're gonna try and get them like release day, but maybe the week after, so we can actually, really pick their brains. And they have graciously said they would come back, so I'm excited for that because it is shaping up to be, I would argue, the best Diablo story that we've seen. And I know that's presumptuous because it is only 1 through 25. It's one zone. You have to stick a landing, right? The Diablo 3 story, was moving in an it was moving in an okay direction in the beta that we played.
Hmm.
And then we got hit with a few things along the way, but we're not going to talk about those. So they still got to stick the landing, but all of the signs are pointing to them having a good handle on this. I don't I don't expect that we're going to be left at the end feeling like we made the right choice,
Hmm.
which was one of my favorite things about Diablo 1 was you defeat Diablo and then you slam that soul stone right in your head.
What
That
could
wasn't
possibly go wrong?
Yeah, that wasn't a good decision, but it was a decision you had to make. And I loved that ending. Like that was so perfect. Um, I feel like there's an ending like that coming, right? Where it's like
Yeah,
it's not good, but it's not awful. We got to do something. And if that's what
yeah.
what transpires, then they nailed it because Diablo 2's ending was good too. I don't want to besmirch that. The destruction of the World Stone feels like a very big deal. Um, Diablo 3, we don't know. I don't know what the resolution of that one was yet
Hmm.
because we don't know. And that was one thing to kind of bring up is I was looking. I was really looking during the beta because I really just kind of thought we would get something. We would get
Yeah,
something that kind of like somebody be like, "Oh yeah, remember that plague that killed everybody?" Or
yeah. Something that would just go through because they had talked about in during Reaper of Souls, it Malthael goes through and it starts attacking all of Sanctuary. Malthael's minions are killing everybody. They're opening up those little, those death portals everywhere in
right,
order to steal the souls of all of humanity. And we didn't really find out the extent of that battle until Diablo 4, where in one of the developer interviews at BlizzCon, they had mentioned that 90% of humanity had been wiped out. And even if it's been, maybe 40, 50 years since the events of Diablo 3, that would be the type of thing that people would still talk about. There are probably whole civilizations, like countries that have been completely gutted, gone, cities left empty and such, having to be repopulated. And people would talk about that kind of thing. You would think, but no, no one's mentioned anything about it.
Yeah,
So,
and because we did get left on a cliffhanger, we have our hero or collection of heroes. We're not fully sure that is risen above both demon and angel to be a force of true fear and
mhm,
reckoning. I just want to know, like how does that get resolved? Um, and, they're in a box. Like, what happened to that character that that person just didn't go out and destroy everything that was evil or the world? What happened?
yeah,
I thought there'd be something, but maybe there is. Maybe that's a Act Four kind of thing. I don't know, but I really was
yeah,
surprised that we didn't catch any of that. Regardless, I am still very excited for the story, and I am excited to see how it shapes up. A yum for me would be combat.
mm,
Diablo 3 has a great fluid combat system, right? It's quick, but over the years has turned into a screen clearing fest, right?
mhm,
Combat in Diablo 4 takes that from Diablo 3, where it's fluid and it feels really good with each of the skill choices that you're making, but it has that slower pace where it feels just as good to clear a pack of 5 as it does to clear a screen. And that's what I want. I
yeah,
want that slow, methodical thinking things out as a pack of Khazra come in. Um, I've got the big one that's chasing me, but I've got someone in the back who's lobbing fireballs. I'm making choices. Like I can't stand still. I'm playing a rogue. Like standing still is not gonna be a good idea. So I need a plan. Okay, I've got, 2 dashes. I'm gonna dash. I'm gonna try and take out this guy. And then maybe I'll drop some caltrops to slow them down. And all right, now I'm gonna fire a couple of shots, do a barrage. And just the amount of choices I'm making constantly during combat, as opposed to just spam one skill, spam one
yeah.
skill, spam one skill. Um,
Especially for bosses,
yeah,
your positioning matters so much.
absolutely. And like that's another part of that the combat is bosses felt good. And I think eventually, that newness will fade away, and maybe we will just kind of want what's going to really matter when it comes to like bosses is going to be like the reward and like the loop, like the end, those end dungeon bosses. Um, After you get that first aspect that you're able to unlock, and we know we will be running dungeons down the road. The reward of the boss is going to have to be equal because it does take longer, right? I'm going to want a decent reward for completing it. But
Hmm.
right now, as they are very new, it is refreshing to have to go in and think a little bit and not just, all right, I'll stand near them, spam, 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 spam,
Yep.
dead, grab the garbage and leave.
Yeah, yeah. And that isn't to say because there have been, if you go and you find it, there are some videos of like some very much shenanigans of like near one-shotting bosses in the level 25 beta for like the super combos, whether they're intended or not. But yeah, no, I mean for the most part, yeah. I would prefer a slower, more tactical combat than screen clearing. Yeah, because that's something that's not just a Diablo issue. That's also Path of Exile. Where it's your the efficiency of your build is based upon how many screens forward you can clear. You gotta you have to kill like 2 screens away in order to actually be like a usable build.
Right, and what happens in Path of Exile, and what I don't want to see happen in Diablo is how do you counter that? If every player is capable of clearing multiple screens, well then you give the monsters the ability to basically one shot a player. And I know there are mechanics and you can try and build, but there still are a lot of one shots within Path of Exile. And that doesn't feel fun. It doesn't feel fun to just like get killed and not really know how you were supposed to prevent it. Um, Whereas I felt as I was going into every fight, I could see why it was my fault, right? Like, oh, I went in with the wrong skill loadout. This is a boss that needs, like if for a rogue, maybe I would have been better to be more melee focused, where I needed, um, a better movement skill or something to that effect. In fact, one of the nice things that I did pick up an item that gave me a skill that I didn't spec into. So I was using caltrops despite not putting any points into it, and I found it was actually super useful, but not useful enough that I wanted to use a skill point on it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I have a little bit of versatility here. I would hate to lose that. I would hate to lose that
Mhm.
because the game speeds up too much. And granted, it's going to no matter what. Like the game will pick up because we will get more powerful, items will get
Yeah.
introduced. But I hope that core remains the same because that is so much more fun. And I get what Crip would be bringing up about, you're never going to feel more powerful because monsters are always scaling and stuff. But I don't know. I don't want to clear screens on screens on screens and never really have that kind of visceral combat that is inherent into what we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, fully agreed. I like the pacing, that it is now. And I know that it is next to impossible to keep that, throughout the entire game, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And it is great, to drop an upheaval and kill, like 10 enemies at once, but you also don't get to do upheaval consistently, right? You earn it
Yeah.
through all of your generators up to that point. And then, you cannot just stand there spamming upheaval. You're throwing on Iron Skin, you're doing some of your shouts, and then you're getting to it. So there's like a progression, not just I'm going to stand there and spam upheaval and just clear
Hmm.
everything. Which, by the
Yeah.
way, if you're going in to this weekend's beta and you don't care about a druid or necromancer and you didn't use upheaval, go and do that. That is just a fun skill. It is awesome.
You build up that 40 fury, and if there's 15 enemies on the screen, you press that button, there are no longer 15 enemies on that screen, and you no longer have 40 fury.
That is true. And it is fun. Like I'm not a huge barbarian player. It is I did appreciate, if we talk more yums, I did appreciate the way this beta was. I was reticent at first not having all classes and being forced into just three. But what it did force me to do was play classes I probably won't. I don't foresee myself
Yeah,
playing a barbarian in
same.
release. I don't see myself playing a sorcerer. But it did tune me into the rogue. Rogue was a class that I was kind of interested in, but
And now you got the
tomorrow,
taste.
right? Tomorrow I'm not going to play it. When release happens, I'm probably not going to play it. But when character selection comes up after that third or fourth or eighth hardcore death, I might take a stab at it because I've had some
Hmm.
experience. I did like it. I really enjoyed the rogue class. All the classes felt good. Uh, I want to state that sorcerer is just not for me. It's just not a character fantasy that I enjoy, but it was still fun. Like all the characters felt fun, and that makes me even more excited for this weekend because if I can enjoy classes that I'm not interested in, man, that druid's going to be awesome.
Yep. Yeah. I'm glad. I am happy for you that you'll finally get what you've always wanted. You get to play the druid. No,
Finally.
no hating. I'm just happy for you.
Thank you. And I'm excited for you because as we, kind of are looking forward, you get a necromancer, something that you have not been able to play.
Yeah.
Because when you played in 2019, the only classes available were druid, barbarian, and sorcerer.
And sort. Yep.
And then for the press release beta, you got the same three that we had this weekend. So here it
Yep.
is. After years of waiting, you get to be Necro Nineball.
Mm. Yeah, and I've been looking at some of the skill selections and stuff like that that has appeared out there on the interwebs and such, and I I'm gonna make a stagger build. I just have one goal for this weekend. I'm gonna break Ashava's arms. Gonna get into one of those world boss fights, and I'm gonna stagger her because everything that I've seen, no one attempted to like. Because every was what was it? The big like sorceress build was like chain lightning and Hydra, and so like no one was playing any type of crowd control or anything along those lines. And so like in all of the fights that I had seen for Ashava, no one built the stagger bar. But obviously, people killed her without having to stagger her. But I just want to see the arms break. I just want to stagger her and get the broken arms.
It's an enviable goal. My
Yeah.
plan is to go nowhere near one plus yet. Uh, if you have not seen anybody attempt it, um, from the hardcore perspective, I need to do a lot of research and a lot of planning before I'm going to feel comfortable you doing that. Maybe I'll throw the rogue.
Uh,
So all of your stuff
yeah.
carries over into this weekend. My level 25 rogue is never going to live after this weekend, so maybe I'll throw the rogue at it just just to try it.
So literally, the safest place for a Shava is directly underneath her.
Don't feel
Just stand,
comfortable with that.
just stand right under the butt. The big sweep misses you if you're standing. It literally is just the blade portion of the arm. So if you're standing underneath her, you miss it. And when she digs her claws in, and then does the big pushback, literally like straight between the screws.
Hmm.
For anybody that's seen down Periscope, just get straight between the screws, and you're fine. You'll live. Just don't mess up or you die.
Yeah, I'd
It's that
rather
simple. It's
I'd
that
rather
simple.
live is my
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
That's that's just me. Uh, Another yum, the dodge mechanic or dash, right? Uh,
Hmm.
I didn't know how I was going to feel about it, but it became very intuitive to just like have space at the ready for those mechanics that I knew I could get out of the way of. We've had this option on console for Diablo 3 because you could, move your little joystick and do a roll. It's also why I can't play on the treadmill because of motion. If anybody's listening and you could fix that, that'd be great. Uh, but I don't suspect a hot fix to that. So I didn't know how to feel of actually having it on PC and to see how it would work. I loved it. I liked being able to get boots that increased the amount of dash that I had. Um, you could get other options with dash. I think like when you dash, you get like a movement increase. When you dash,
Oh yeah. The dash, the dodge mechanic for me, it
yeah,
just ended up being a speed boost because I had the I think it was boots, or was it the pants that basically it gave like a 30% movement speed bonus for just a couple seconds after you dodge. And I just had that on the entire time. So that way I just was dodging and then running and dodging and running.
yeah. I mean, but
Of
it was
course,
a
there were times
nice.
there. Yeah, I always was way too aggressive because I would end up using the dodge mechanic to engage an enemy and then couldn't dodge the ice, the ice explosions and other things like that. So
Yeah,
it's fun. I like it. It gives you that ability.
yeah, it has its place. Yeah, zooming around a little bit, and then you're like, oh wait, that it does have another purpose to not get me stunned, feared, crushed, all of those things. Other yums, Neinball.
Um, yeah, I enjoyed overall. I mean, I enjoy kind of like the legendary and the aspect system. Of going through and that legendaries are just rares with a legendary affix, and that you can move them around, to different gear slots. Like amulets, two-handed weapons actually like increase the effectiveness of the legendary aspect that they're in. Um, because what was it when it was originally announced? They said that like it might be tied to like specific slots, but now there's no more like slot stipulations on it. So it used to be like maybe this affix will only roll on like weapons and gloves. Now you can just put it anywhere. Um, that I really like the potential of that system and how it works and interacts. Also being able to like, I had this really good legendary at level 10. I've for literally because it was the one with the barbarian that made it so that way there was a chance that when you casted upheaval, another barbarian would spawn and cast upheaval. You know, like an ancient would spawn and do it. So you kind of like double your upheaval damage. Um, and just being able to like hold on to that one because by level 25 I hadn't found another piece of gear with it, and so I just put it on like one of my level 25 pieces, so that way I could mess around with it for going and playing against Shava and just blasting dungeons and things like that. So that was fun being able to hold on to it.
And that kind of goes back to one of the things I really hated about Diablo 3 was when you found something nice at a low level, you immediately replaced it, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if I find this legendary at level 50 because I need the level 71 to actually do damage or be effective. If I can find something okay at level 10 and then be able to steal that power and toss it on something at level 25, at level 50, or whatever it might be, that means that the journey was worth it, right? And if I have
yeah,
to go back and do it again, I have another chance of finding something that's just as good or better to make the next journey worth it too. Because you always felt penalized for not being level 70 right
yeah,
away. Because anything found during that time, and obviously level 1 to 70 is trivialized now anyway, but it wasn't always. So it did make leveling feel a little bit more painful. Whereas this is nice. Like one of the things I really like about the Diablo series is, and a lot of ARPGs, that something good can happen at any level and it doesn't matter, right?
hmm
Great item can drop at level 22 or at level 100. And I'm rewarded by playing, not by just grinding out 70 plus levels immediately. So I'm excited for that aspect system. It was also nice with the dungeons too, that if my RNG wasn't great, I could steal one of those to give me something to kind of, you know, improve my build or change the way I had been playing to be more effective.
and just like kind of like going on top of like the codex of power, segueing slightly into just the rest of like the other systems that you have, like the renown of just things that you can carry over from one character to the next. That the next character, when you start your druid and when I start my necromancer, we're actually going to have skill points to spend right at level 1, which you don't normally on your very first character. You're going to have an extra potion slot. We're going to have those codex entries that we can just immediately start imbuing yellows right out the gate and have like that boosted leveling experience.
And we'll also be starting stronger, courtesy of all the bonuses that
It's
we
all
picked up
yeah,
with the
the
altars
altars.
from,
Yeah,
be it more nobles or more willpower, more strength, more dexterity, all that kind of stuff. So your next character is always a little bit stronger than what the first one had started. It'll be
yeah,
interesting as they go into seasons, uh, having to go and find every altar every season.
yeah.
I don't. Maybe
Uh,
once every 3 months, I guess. But
yeah,
there's
there's
what, 82 of them? No, am I right? No, no,
that.
32?
So I think it was 28. There were
28.
28 in the fractured peaks.
Right.
So
So
if there so if there's
multiply
a
that by,
similar if there's this yeah if there's a similar number, we're looking at somewhere around like 150 altars, throughout the entire game in order to collect from the 5 zones.
yeah. So that could be, on league start, right? A couple hours of your time just finding the altars. And honestly, I would probably do that first because I would expect to die uh, pretty quickly. So uh, it's a good thing. I like it, but
Mhm.
every season I could see the tedium of it.
Yeah. What if they change the locations every season? Would
I
that
don't know
make
if
it
I
better or worse?
don't know. Or yeah, I don't know. If they change the locations, change the rewards too, maybe. But
Yeah.
that's a different conversation for as we get into seasons to kind of see what will happen and honestly to see the time involved to kind of go and do it. But that is going to be exciting to to start out, and especially again coming from the hardcore perspective where I die to kind of lessen that burden a little bit
Yeah.
to immediately have a generator and a spender because I've built up those skills. That'll be
Hmm.
nice. Because I would assume the other areas are going to be kind of similar, where the first renown point is a skill point, right? And some gold.
Yeah.
And then, so ideally you're starting with like 6 skill points, and you can kind of get your
Which
character going.
yeah, which is also one of those other ones where it's like it's not even that your first character is going to spend all those time like going through and collecting those altars. Depending upon how much you actually have to, I didn't look at the numbers, so I don't know. Because there's actually 2 more renown points to unlock that are locked in the beta that you can't do. You know that the big draw, of course, is like the skill points, the potion charges, and eventually there's even paragon points that you can unlock from the noun system. But the golden experience boosts are per character, and so you can re-earn that golden experience is one of the things that you're going to want to do. Unlocking those renown bonuses on multiple characters. Are you going to have to actually go through and find all of the altars on all the characters? Which is
Right.
going back to like one of my yucks of the map. I would like to see the altars I found on other characters on the map. You can differentiate between whether I found it on this character or not, but I would like to, at least see the ones because I already have the bonus. To create a whole
Right.
new character, I've already got the bonus. I've unlocked the benefit and such. But I don't know, did I get this one yet or not?
Yeah. Especially, as we're still figuring things out, and Pure Diablo does have a mapping tool out there, so you'd be able to kind of go and utilize that to see where things are. But maybe there's one that was missed. Maybe there's one that wasn't reported, and then I'm playing on a new character. Was this one I got, or is this one I've already found? And obviously, you can click on it. You'll get experience whether you found it or not, but it's not obviously as much. You don't get the bonus. But yeah, I would agree with you on that. That would be kind of nice to have that continuous progression throughout to just have it. Um, but those were fun too to find, and they are well hidden, I may say.
Yeah.
But
So there's actually some that because I was going back and I was checking as I was going and I was rolling a sorceress. I almost said necromancer. I wish I was rolling a sorceress, and
tomorrow.
there were a couple in the starting area that I wanted to go through and pick up. They're not there.
Hmm,
You have to progress the story to Kiovoshad before any of the other altars besides the one that you find in the Vesk will spawn. None
huh,
of they were all the ones that you can access before are not there.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Blizzard, take note and let's see what happens there. Maybe. Uh, Other yums. What you got?
I think that's from what I can remember. I don't even know if I gave the same answers as the show that we recorded on Monday. But I think that's kind of wrapping up for me right now.
I will state, did you do any strongholds? Because those were enjoyable.
I only did one.
Okay. I made it a point to kind of go out and I got all of them. And it just feels like a massively epic quest because it's not just go in, defeat one monster, but there's different objectives, kind of like a dungeon, right?
It was more
And
engaging than a dungeon.
yeah, um, and then you're bouncing back and forth, you're getting overwhelmed. It was genuinely exciting, and then you have the change in the world after you've done it, opening up a new
Hmm.
city. Um, that was just really, really cool. It was a great experience. I'm looking forward to going back and doing that with the Druid this weekend. So, if you didn't get a chance to delve into Strongholds, definitely do them. And some of them are level restricted as well. Like as I was leveling my barb, I was going to go and do it, and I walked into the one that was like level 25. I was like, not today,
Yeah.
and I didn't.
Yeah, that is one thing to mention about like the level scaling. There are a couple of places that have a minimum level.
Yeah.
Nothing has a max, but there are certain ones that have a minimum level.
I was able to go in and do one of the strongholds. I can't remember the level restriction, but I know it was like 2 or 3 levels under, and I was able to succeed. It was hard. Um, so it's not. impossible to do them under level, but it was probably much harder than if I was on the exact same level as them. But still, super enjoyable. I'm looking forward to more of those and in different zones as well. I think that'll be exciting.
Yep.
Well, before we close out, any plans for this weekend?
Um, I have another Call of Cthulhu game on Saturday night, and we're filing taxes on Saturday, so I think that's gonna eat up a lot of our time. Maybe I'll play some Necromancer. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe. I'm in the same boat. So let's switch gears here. We're gonna see.
Bravo,
This is the
bravo.
best druid cosplay you can have.
Well, you've got a stream now.
Yeah, at this point. Uh, this will work. So let's get that bushy tail up here. It's a coyote, if anybody cares, and it's ethical. I did not kill it. It was given to us. So ethical for me anyway. Uh, anyways, I I'm so excited for this weekend. Like you, I do have some other things that are going on this weekend. Um, we have people coming over on Saturday. That was stupid. I'm doing a lot of running this weekend. Also stupid. Uh, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, to the best of my ability, I'm going to be druiding it up all over the place, and I'm so excited
Yep.
for that. I was very excited last weekend to finally get to play, and then after years of waiting to finally play the class that I've been so excited for. And it's been very exciting right now too. There's a lot of other people who are getting hip to the druid. Uh, so Ash Sweetring, who's one of the dungeon creators for Diablo, she's going to be streaming tomorrow, I believe, and she's going with a
Mm-hmm.
druid. We know Pez is a druid man himself, and other. All right, so I can name like two people, but there are more. There are
There
more
are
of
dozens of
us.
you. Congratulations. You almost have a pack.
I know we're getting there. I did post this today as well. It came to my attention from BlizzCon in 2019, the sculptor for the Lilith statue. I'm trying to see where it is in your room right now. Uh, for the Lilith statue. Yep, yep, there she is. So for the Lilith statue, also did a druid one. There is this amazing druid statue out there, and it has me wondering if that's something we might see down the road.
Who knows? Who knows? But be careful what you wish for, because you might
I'm
end up with the monkey's paw on an Arius like I did, and it costs $1,100.
yeah, yeah. I'm not ready for that, but I do have the perfect location for it, as I did show before. We can do some painting around it. Maybe make it a forest scape now instead of a city.
Yeah,
So, just saying, Blizzard,
and
if you wanted to send it to
the
me, I would put it on
the
the painting.
fountain would still be topical too.
That would totally work.
Yeah,
Just saying, they don't have to make it, but I think some people would like it. Okay. We got a great weekend of Diablo coming up and then a long route. I'm looking forward to chatting with you about how that all went because while this beta was exciting, I want to state that it has been such a treat to play the game. Um, I'm excited to dig in with the class that I know I'm going to play. Now I could be wrong. Maybe the true is awful, um, but I'm very good at committing to bad decisions.
I mean, you're a druid main in Diablo too, so yes, this is
I would
just saying it out loud for the audience at home.
Yeah, I want to point this out. Like, I don't think the Druid has ever been meta. Has there, and maybe I'm blanking on it, was there ever a time when the Druid was like S tier class?
The only thing that I know of is that they're like really good for going through and like rushing to hell. Just because of the fissure is like stupid overpowered at low levels and
It,
can push you like really through most of the game just pumping points into fissure.
yeah, it can be
Beyond that, I have
effective,
no idea.
but it's never been like, oh, it's better than a sorceress, it's better than a
Yeah,
paladin, uh, or it's better than a Javazon. They've always like druids have always lived in like A or B tier. So I
yeah,
think it would be really
living.
funny if the Diablo 4 druid was the meta, like it was just the best. I don't think that's the case.
You know,
But just for once, it's time to shine would be would be nice. Otherwise, I'll be dwelling in B tier. I'm totally
yeah,
fine with it. Okay, so we spent a lot of time here today. We got our yucks, we got our yums. I'm curious, those of you guys who all played, what were your yucks and your yums? Sound off in the comments. Generic streamer talk. Like and subscribe. Yada yada yada. Let's close it out as we always do with moo. Moo.
moo, 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 moo.
Moo.